Hello, and welcome to TechVision Live, CDW's live social broadcast program for IT professionals that highlights CDW's experts, solutions, and partners. We're coming to you live from CDW's campus here in Lincolnshire, Illinois. Where are you tuning in from today? Let us know in the comments and say hi. We've got an exciting show for you today, and it's on a topic that many businesses are confounded by: how to upgrade their IT infrastructure and move into a new era where hybrid IT and cloud adoption is making businesses more competitive. Joining us today are two of CDW's best and brightest experts in the modern IT infrastructure space, Sandra Bletner and Joe Faraci. And they're here today to answer a few questions, not just from me, but from you too. Since this is a live show, you get a chance to participate. Share your thoughts or ask us a question. In fact, I see some activity in the comments already. We have Martin from Minneapolis. He shared the post. Thank you for getting the word out. And Melissa from Chicago is on. Hi, Melissa. So let us know what you're interested in learning today. Plus, our CDW ambassadors are out in full force. And if you don't know, when you're on CDW.com and ready to make a transaction, our CDW ambassadors are those everyday experts who answer your comments or answer your questions in the chat. Whoever you are, make sure you shout out to us in the comments and let us know you're watching. We will be answering your questions later in the show. So as the interview begins, start thinking about the questions you want to ask and submit them early so we can answer them later. All right, are you ready? Because TechVision Live starts now. Okay, so let's get the show started. Before we begin, I just want to note that this Friday, July 27th, is Sysadmin Day, and we want to give a shout out to all of the systems administrators who are watching. If you're not familiar with Sysadmin Day, let me clue you in. We at CDW think it's one of the most important holidays of the year because it's when we get to pay tribute to this sometimes overlooked group. Systems administrators are those heroic men and women who, no matter the weather or day, they prevent data center disasters, keep cybercrime at bay, and put out tech fires left and right. In honor of the holiday, the smart people here at CDW decided to show our appreciation by curating a couple of playlists with your help. If you are a sysadmin, we want to know, what is your IT anthem? What is that song that plays in your head when you walk triumphantly out of the server room after averting a major systems meltdown? And for the rest of us, what song would you send to your sysadmin to show your appreciation? Would you break out singing that 1990s tune from Dido? Or perhaps the theme song from Golden Girls? I don't know. You tell us in the comments here or on one of CDW's social accounts. And we'll add it to our playlist, which, by the way, we will not reveal until Friday, July 27th, the actual Sysadmin Day. So check back in to see if your nominations made the cut. And if you stick with us through to the end of TechVision Live, we have a fun little flashback for you from our partner at Sophos. Now, let's talk more about how IT infrastructure is being upgraded for the future. IT is taking center stage as a strategic investment. Our recent Modern IT Infrastructure report explores this topic further and shares input from more than 400 IT decision makers. You can download it at cdw.com/modernit. You'll find that link in the comments also. Today, technology isn't just keeping the lights on. It's giving organizations new potential, better insights, and much faster ways to innovate. Hybrid infrastructure and cloud computing bring with them ever-expanding possibilities that have changed IT. Organizations are definitely taking notice. A recent IDG study, sponsored by CDW, found that nearly half of all organizations report running a hybrid IT environment. In fact, organizations that have started to migrate toward hybrid environments are already seeing results. While the scalability, speed, and productivity are great, they come with IT challenges. CIOs and CTOs must address security controls, growing complexity, and increased bandwidth requirements. What about you? Are you operating in a hybrid environment? We want you to weigh in on this topic with a trivia question. Up on the screen, you're going to see a statistic. Take your best guess on whether the real percentage is higher or lower. Answer in the comments and stick around to find out the real number in just a bit. So I'm checking out the comments to see who has joined us. So far we have Chris, a CDW ambassador, and Dee says good morning, also a CDW ambassador. If you're a CDW ambassador, use hashtag CDW ambassador to let us know you're there. Taylor C. from Florida is watching. Hi, Taylor. And Mike, Pirates of the Caribbean theme. Okay. And we got Susie from Bloomington. But right now, let's talk about how cloud is playing into this IT modernization story. It's definitely beginning to transform business. Examples of cloud usage are everywhere, from mobile teams accessing online spreadsheets from different parts of the country to developers testing and deploying apps to upgrade their customers' experiences. In fact, virtually every enterprise considers some form of computing an integral part of their IT strategy, and cloud spend is expected to grow to $270 billion by 2020. As with any transformational technology, many organizations have questions, like what enterprise applications would be a good fit for the public cloud? When it comes down to choosing between workloads on-prem versus an infrastructure as a service or a platform as a service environment, what criteria would companies take into consideration? And what role can a third-party provider play in helping to make these IT decisions easier? Upgrading your IT infrastructure for the future can be a challenge. Not sure how to get started? Well, that's the topic for our first guest. I'd like to introduce you to Sandra Bletner, a principal for Cloud Client Services at CDW. She's here to help answer some of those questions we just talked about, plus many more around this important topic. Thanks for joining us, Sandra.
Thanks for having me.
It's really good to have you here. So, as more companies are shifting their infrastructure to a modern IT landscape, can you start with some background on the role hybrid and cloud adoption is playing?
You know, Marcia, the cloud industry has come a really long way just in a short number of years. And we look back just 5 years ago to when cloud first came out. Organizations really met it with a lot of hesitation. IT professionals weren't sure what exactly it was or what it is. Security was also a big misnomer as well. And so people were really resistant. But you fast forward to today, and organizations are leveraging cloud, whether that's software as a service or infrastructure as a service, and leveraging it as an acceptable form of IT service delivery. And I think that that acceptance is really twofold. One, the maturity of the industry over the last several years, and large organizations making the jump to cloud publicly. And then two, organizations want the inherent benefits that cloud has to offer: scalability, flexibility, and ease of use.
Right. It's good to see that maturity growing. But in the beginning, it seems that things were quite confusing. So what do you think is driving these shifts, and where are customers most confused?
Well, I think what's driving the shifts is definitely people need to stay more competitive than ever and react to changing market conditions. And the benefits or the capabilities of cloud ultimately help organizations do that. Traditional infrastructure, from a scalability and burstability perspective, for example, is really limiting. And the biggest challenges that we hear from customers today is three questions, really. What am I moving? Why am I moving it? And what benefits do I hope to achieve out of it? Okay. And then how to move. So things like multi-cloud. Should I keep it in a multi-cloud environment or put all my eggs in one cloud basket?
Right. So when CDW works with companies on upgrading their IT infrastructure, who is typically involved in these discussions?
Well, as we saw from the Upgrading and Preparing for the Future Summit in Nashville just a few short weeks ago, cloud and other forward-thinking technologies like an AI or IoT is no longer just a concern that sits with the CIO or CTO.
Right.
It's oftentimes a CXO decision or even a board-level discussion. And a lot of that is driven by the fact that line of business today, so our marketing friends, research, financial, developers, they're more powerful than ever because they have their own technology budgets and then therefore their own technology making decisions and power.
Right. And I know in the past it's been difficult to get IT and the C-suite seeing eye to eye when it comes to, these types of IT decisions, but now it's an imperative, right? So as they get on the same page, I'm sure they're having a lot of interesting conversations. What are some of the other challenges that customers face today with cloud and preparing their infrastructure for the future?
The biggest challenge, or one of the biggest challenges that we see, is we know that IT is being stretched very thin nowadays, right? We've got to do more with less.
Right.
And so sometimes being strategic and looking at technologies that are more modern, such as cloud, is oftentimes it comes at a cost because we're just keeping the data center lights on. But we have to remember that IT is an enabler for organizations today. So not only can we not have IT, we have to have IT not only run the business, but really grow and transform the business as well.
Right. It can be tough when you're trying to balance workloads and workforce and resources and budgets and especially when you're trying to be innovative and you have to keep all of those different things in mind.
A lot of balls moving in the air, right?
Right. So let's talk about how CDW's cloud services team can help overcome some of those hurdles, right? So what are the different ways that your team here at CDW works with a company to make these types of decisions?
So CDW Cloud has a vast portfolio of solutions and services. We have the unique capability to basically fulfill anything as a service for our customers.
Okay.
So that's across software as a service, infrastructure as a service, cloud solutions like unified communications, as well as desktop as a service. However, where we're really having transformative discussions with our customers is specifically around cloud strategy under a portfolio we call Cloud Consulting Services. And one of the things that we know our customers struggle with is migration and integration. Financial forecasting is really difficult, and oh, by the way, that skills gap of actually being able to support your environment from a day-to-day perspective with cloud is oftentimes difficult. So Cloud Consulting Services answers some of those questions and struggles that our customers have.
So through cloud consulting services, I know that there are different types of engagement that CDW has with a customer. What's that first type of engagement?
The first type of engagement that we have under Cloud Consulting Services, or CCS for short, is what we call micro consulting engagement, or an MCE. We really like our acronym.
You do.
So an MCE. And this is generally where organizations first dip their toe in. We offer them in really consumable blocks of hours, so 8, 24, 48 hours. And really a customer that doesn't know where to get started, this is a great way just to get their feet wet. And it could be something as broad as a workload rationalization or something very specific like an office productivity migration.
So it's like an a la carte type of service. So if you're not exactly sure where to begin, you can try things out as you need it, right?
That's right.
Okay. So what is the second type of CDW cloud engagement?
The second type of offering we have is what we call custom engagement, and it's exactly what it sounds like. So it's very much tailored to our customers' unique requirements and requests.
Okay, so that might be something that an organization who's still in the research mode and they're trying to build their vision more and they're looking for a little help and a little guidance, and that's where CDW comes in. Exactly.
We can build a full soup to nuts cloud strategy for them, taking a look at what are their organizational goals, how does that align to IT, and then make the recommendations for workloads to move, and then cloud homes as well.
Okay. And then the third CDW engagement, how does that work?
The third one we have is called prepackaged, and those include things like a health check. So if you're a more mature public hyperscaler customer, for example, we'll go in, take a look at how billing is, governance, making sure you're using the right security best practices so that you don't get breached. We also offer industry packages. So for example, for our friends in healthcare, we offer an Epic workshop.
Okay.
And then the last offering we have under prepackaged is a really unique offering, what we call Cloud Expert on Demand, or CEOD for short. And yes, so one of the things that we know, we talked about a little bit earlier, is that skills gap, right? Organizations are having a hard time finding the right talent to support their cloud environments.
Right.
And so what CEOD does is that it gives access to a pool of engineers to help with their cloud environments, and they essentially act as our customers' extension of their IT team.
Right. IT workforces are in high demand right now, and I know for my own life, I would like an expert on demand if I could use
That would
one.
be great,
right? Okay, so last question. When a company or organization is looking for a third-party partner to work with on upgrading their IT and infrastructure, what should they be asking? What should they be thinking about?
So first and foremost, it's really important that the organization takes a look at baseline expectation setting. You know, why are they moving in cloud? What are the motivating factors? And then what results do they expect to achieve? You know, certainly knowing that their answers might change along the journey, but at least setting that baseline is always a good start.
Okay.
Having said that, there's 4 things that I would recommend looking for in a partner. First and foremost, that is their end-to-end capabilities. You want a partner that is able to crawl, walk, or run with you, no matter if you want to crawl one day and then walk and then run, right? So whatever pace you want to go at is really important. And then, crucially, is finding a partner that not only can implement, but design the solution as well. So really design and implementation services in one. The second area is, what does their ecosystem capabilities and partnership look like? You know, are they experts around the top 3 public hyperscalers, for example? But then do they also understand private cloud, whether that's in their own data center or in a private cloud or a private preferred partner network, for example? The third would be, what is their industry expertise? You know, we know that for our friends in the federal space, the healthcare, payer or provider, financial, you know, the nuances are really important to understand. So making sure that you have a partner that understands the ramifications of FedRAMP, HIPAA High Trust, and PCI is really important.
Right. So basically just to sum up, you're saying that you want to find a partner that can keep pace with you, someone that can help with that design and implementation piece, not just designing it, but putting together the implementation.
Absolutely.
And then, as you said, know their expertise. What is it that they're trying to build for you? For example, if you go to a construction company, you want to know, can they build you a condo or a 4-bedroom house?
Exactly.
Okay. And then also the industry that they're working in.
Absolutely, very important. You never want to be the guinea pig in your industry, especially if you're in a sensitive one like healthcare. So making sure,
so crucial that you stick to those regulations.
Exactly. So really making sure that you understand where their referenceability is, and also understanding where they had troubles or challenges before, so that you can learn from that.
Okay, so those are all really very important points, and thank you so much for sharing. Be sure to check out cdw.com/cloud for more information on how to set up a cloud assessment for your business, as well as the best solutions and services available to support your IT infrastructure upgrade. So we appreciate your time, and we'll see you back shortly for a Q&A with Joe Faraci, CDW's Cloud Client Executive. He's going to talk with us about getting started on upgrading your IT infrastructure. And that also means you still have time to type in a question for Sandra or Joe. Put them in the comments, and we will ask them during the discussion. Up next, though, is a clip from CDW's Upgrading and Preparing for the Future Summit held in Nashville, Tennessee last month. So let's check it out.
Hi, I'm Elizabeth News with BizTech Magazine. We're here at CDW's Upgrading and Preparing for the Future Summit. I'm with Tim Hanrahan, who's a principal in the Cloud Client Services Group at CDW. We'll be talking about digital transformation in the cloud. How does the cloud support digital transformation efforts?
Well, digital transformation is basically like the train car, and cloud is the tracks that it rides on. So while cloud doesn't necessarily make digital transformation happen, it makes it possible for a company to go from A to B so much easier.
What cloud services are most important for organizations that are planning digital transformation projects?
Well, I don't know if there's a most important, but there's definitely easier and harder. So we could look at things on the easy front, such as moving messaging, looking at file sharing platforms, even things like BYOD is a place where you can easily bring digital into your organization without flipping it upside down on its head.
Welcome back. And hello to any viewers that are just joining us. I also see that we have Sam. He's on in the comments, and I just want to say hi. Spencer J., who is a CDW ambassador, is also here. Thanks for joining us, Spencer. So we're working through the topic of how to modernize your IT infrastructure. And if you're interested in learning more, please download the report on this topic. You can find the link in the comments. These days, organizations are rethinking their approach to IT infrastructure with promises of greater flexibility, cost savings, and faster speed to market. Companies are also increasingly turning their investments to the cloud. But how do you navigate this challenging landscape to meet your organization's unique needs, and where should you start? We're going to ask our next two guests to answer your tough questions around getting started with modern IT infrastructure. We have Sandra back with us, and she's joined by CDW Cloud Client Executive Joe Faraci. Welcome, Joe.
Thank you, Marcia.
All right. So for those who are watching, we want to be sure to get to your questions. I'm checking here on Facebook in the comments, so type your questions in the comments now if you haven't already. To get us started, Sandra, we just watched a clip from CDW's Upgrading and Preparing for the Future Summit in Nashville, Tennessee. Can you tell us any more about the event and what participants got out of it?
Sure. It was a great 2-day session. It brought together customers from all over the U.S., but also our strategic partners, as well as CDW experts and leadership. And, you know, it's never easy to take 2 full days out of the office, but it was wonderful to network and be in this think tank, if you will, with IT leadership, really sharing ideas around how they've been working towards the migration path for a more modern infrastructure.
I'm sure the participants who attended got a lot of information from that. There's some really great coverage from all of our CDW summits online. We'll post the link for them in the comments for you. The next one is focused on security. Now, a question for Joe. Let's see, what is the difference between public and private clouds, Joe? That's a question from Chris B.
Sure. So the way that there are many different definitions of public and private cloud. And the way that we define it here, the way that I define it, is when you think of a public cloud, you're thinking of the customer not owning any hardware infrastructure or having it's what they call multi-tenant infrastructure. Mm-hmm. So what that means is, you know, your infrastructure and your workloads and your applications reside on a hardware infrastructure that's shared with other organizations, other companies, maybe some other schools. Mm-hmm. Whereas private cloud is what they call single tenant, right? And so that could be anywhere from, you know, your traditional on-prem data center, or we have organizations and companies and partners out there that provide that as a service. So they'll buy all the hardware for you, they'll set it up for you, and you're the only tenant that resides on that hardware. That's kind of the loose definition of public and private cloud.
Okay, thank you. And it all depends on what you're trying to do in your organization and your environment. When you work with customers, what are some of the first steps or some of the discussions that you have with them? And like, what should organizations know about that process?
Sure. Well, one of the things that I think we do uniquely here at CDW is I think first of all, I think we've identified a need for customers to have a strategic vision. Mm-hmm. This is the evolution from traditional to hybrid IT it's fundamentally a different way that our customers and companies out there consume these IT services, right? Okay. And so having a strategic vision that's put together by industry experts along with your organization is really vital, and that's what Sandra and I both do. That's the basic thing of what we do in our roles here. And like I said, I mean, I think CDW has identified that, and I think we do a great job with front-ending a lot of these strategic high-level engagements with kind of a consulting type of an approach, which Sandra talked about earlier. Mm-hmm. You know, we find that they're very valuable, and with the micro-consulting engagements and with the prepackaged engagements, we found that it's much easier for customers to kind of, for a much smaller financial commitment, consume consulting services. This allows them to set their compass, establish a foundation so that they can then make decisions with which to move forward. And so we found that to be very, very, very important to a lot of our customers.
Okay, in terms of getting started, I know CDW has a really great process. Can you tell us a little more about the pre-planning discussion? Sure. How do you help clients determine, for example, and this is a question from Taylor, thanks for asking, Taylor, how do you help clients determine what should go on a public versus a private cloud?
So that's a good question, and it could be a myriad of different things. One of the things that we see most, and I used to work pretty heavily in the high ed space, there are different data sets, different kinds of applications that probably need more security, especially if you have to adhere to compliance and regulation. So many times, these workloads will require a single tenant type of an environment. They don't want their data, quote unquote, rubbing up against other companies' kinds of data, right? And so they want a house for their children, right? So and it's different. So when we have other things like DR as a service, or maybe not so mission critical applications, or things that you don't really need to tie regulation around, they're suited for a public cloud infrastructure very, very nicely. And to tell you the truth, I mean, the public cloud has become so secure these days that you really could run any workload in a public cloud. It's just a matter of what you're comfortable with. So.
Right. Okay. So, and then with the pre-planning, what are some of the questions that you help a company decide? Should I be in a public cloud or should I stay on-prem?
Well, the first question that we go in with is, how do you want to consume and manage your IT infrastructure, right? And when we're having these conversations, it's typically at the C and VP level, because we want to come to understand what the strategic challenges are. All the technical stuff and all the tactical stuff will come naturally after we build that strategy on the strategic or high level. Okay. Because what we really want to do is help our customers become more flexible, more agile, more competitive. We want to empower their staff to do what they need to get done in a more efficient way. And even we've really been involved with kind of the liberation of the IT department, right? So we've seen, and I've seen in working with customers, that they're really, the day-to-day for an IT person, say an IT manager, is just keeping the lights on. And in all actuality, these types of folks are much more qualified to do things than just keeping the lights on and changing out hard drives, power supplies, things like that. And so with the hybrid IT and moving to the cloud, this really frees them up to be a lot more strategic and important to the company. They can work with the lines of business and giving them what they want. So what we're really trying to do is turn the traditional IT department, they call it the department of no, to the department of yes, right? So it's worked out quite nicely in many occasions. So yeah.
Okay, so we have questions. Thanks, you guys. We have Dee, and her question is, and we plan to talk about this later in this segment, but what are some of the consumption models?
So, well, there are several different kinds of consumption models, right? So you have your software as a service, you have infrastructure as a service. When you talk about a consumption model, though, you're really talking about a kind of a pay-as-you-go, a much more elastic way of financially paying for these kinds of services. It's more of an operational expenditure than it is a capital expenditure. Right. So, and if we're going to get to this later, I'll still bring it up now on a high level, but you have different kinds of customers that experience what we call seasonality, right? So that's, when an organization experiences different levels of bandwidth usage at different times of the year. Two great examples of this would be the high ed segment, which I used to cover, and then retail, which I've had a lot of experience with lately. So if you think of a large retail organization, they probably experience a high level of bandwidth and resource usage during the holidays, right? And so if you're going through a traditional model of managing your IT and your data center, you've got to compensate for that peak level of usage. So what happens during those off-peak times of the year? All those resources are just sitting there and lying dormant. So we really could call that kind of a waste of money. And with public cloud and with pay-as-you-go, you can scale those up and down as appropriate. And so you really have a lot more elasticity and flexibility. A lot of times that can mean, operating an IT infrastructure for less money. That's not really what we want to focus on, because sometimes that's not the case. It's really what's best for the organization and what's going to allow them to be the most competitive. Right,
whether that's cost savings or efficiency, those are decisions that they have to come to eventually. So Sandra, I know that the proposal is a big part of the equation when we're going in to have those discussions. What goes into that? What goes into the proposal?
Well, the proposal is going to be unique for every customer, right? Again, to Joe's point of what are their overall strategic goals. So we'll work with them as well as one of our consulting partners to really create a unique scope of engagement for them, or scope of work based upon what they are looking for. Okay.
And after the proposal, what's next? What's the next step?
Well, we would love to have a kickoff call to kick off the project as a next step. But generally, that's if there's any questions with the proposal, we're certainly happy to answer, and of course, refine as needed if there's anything from our customers' end that has changed.
Okay, and finally, what comes after that? What's
we get kicked off with the project.
The deployment.
The deployment, exactly right.
Okay. All right. So I have another question from Taylor. What steps should a company take if you already have cloud solutions in place? Either one of you can take that.
Well, there's a few things that you can do. If you have cloud solutions in place, one of the things that we'll want to do is make sure that infrastructure is sound and that there are not many chinks in the armor. We can do this by any number of ways, right? We can do a health check, we can do an assessment, we can do an evaluation. Many different ways. We've got a lot of flexibility there. And the good news with CDW is, we can kind of rewind the tape, as it were. I'm dating myself there, but. We can kind of go back in time and help fix those. What we want to avoid with a lot of this, if you already have embarked on a cloud journey and you really just want to kind of have an assessment, we want to avoid what we call the cloud U-turn, right? And this can happen when you look at your cloud journey or your strategy, you build a strategy and none of these different things are connected, right? We don't have an overarching strategy where DR is not connected with Active Directory or it's not connected with your single sign-on or anything like that. All these need to be thought about holistically, right? As one having to do with the other. So we can go in, we can assess that, and we can kind of fix things where we are, where they need to be.
Right.
And so we can avoid that cloud U-turn. And basically, the cloud U-turn is, you start doing these things on a one-off basis, and then you get to a certain point where you have to deliver a mission-critical cloud application to, say, some department that absolutely needs it. Well, for one reason or another, it doesn't play nice with one of the earlier solutions that you've installed, which causes you to bring everything back on premise, right? So. Costs a lot of money 100% of the time, and in some cases it costs some jobs. So yeah, we want to avoid that at all costs.
Oh, that's very valuable information, and we're getting a lot of comments out there from the audience. Thank you guys, we really appreciate it. So another comment or question from Spencer J. What are some recommendations on applications to move to the cloud first?
Well, from an infrastructure as a service perspective, holistically, as we look at a more modern hybrid infrastructure, we're seeing top 3 use cases are pretty generic or common IT workloads. So things like test dev, research, e-commerce websites, right? Really areas that organizations don't have a lot of risk in. So those are 3 general areas, just holistically, where we're seeing obviously a strategy would need to be discussed about before we would make a recommendation formally for any organization for their workloads.
So here's a question. What kind of cloud certifications should third-party partners have?
Yeah, that's a big one. So obviously from a data center perspective, we want to look at if there's SOC 2, SSAE 16, all the typical data center certifications that one would look for even in like a co-location partner. I think if you're in specific industries, you'd again want to know if they're FedRAMP certified, high trust, HIPAA, high tech for healthcare, and then PCI compliance as well. GDPR is a new one. The European Union just released that on May 25th. So making sure that organizations follow those standards as a baseline of depending on your industry is really important.
Very dependent on the industry.
Okay. So, we don't have any more questions at this time, but Joe and Sandra, this has been some really great input. Now, where could our audience look to find more information about CDW services?
Sure. So you could go right to our website, cdw.com/cloud, I believe. That's where you see Sandra and myself out there. I believe there's contact information out there. Please get a hold of your account manager if you're a current CDW customer. Many different ways to get a hold of us. We're all out there on LinkedIn and all those different social media mediums. So we're easy to find.
These are very interesting points to keep in mind, and I hope you guys go to cdw.com/cloud to get more information. I actually have a couple of other questions. What are some examples for how different industries upgrade their IT infrastructure and utilize the cloud? You talked about that a little bit earlier. So, for example, in healthcare and retail and education, like you mentioned in higher ed, give us some examples of ways that these industries are upgrading to the cloud and hybrid IT.
Sure, I can give you a quick example in high ed. When I used to work with those folks, we dealt a lot with generational gaps within colleges and universities, right? So you have the faculty, as an example, right? You'll have the faculty that really is partial to using something like an Office 365 or a Microsoft Exchange.
Right.
And then you've got the student body coming in, and this is where the generational gap comes in. They like your Gmails and your YMails and all that other good stuff.
Yeah.
And so what we're seeing is that, you know, that's taxing on an IT staff because now you have to manage two separate types of environments, but they have to talk nicely with each other.
Okay.
And then dealing with all the seasonality and everything else that these folks have to deal with can be very daunting. And so, you know, when you talk about upgrading and doing things, that's why it's very important to have a strategy. What is the biggest challenge? Let's stack rank these challenges and let's attack them. But, you know, with regards to high ed, that's kind of a big, huge thing. Another one in high ed is kind of transforming the student labs. So if you think of a student lab, I remember back when I went to college, it was, you go in, there's a big, huge computer there, you log in and you can write your paper or whatever. What they're trying to go to now is kind of a computerless lab, right? And so we can do this through things like, you know, remote desktop or desktop as a service type of solutions.
Okay, yeah.
Huge, huge undertaking, right? So, and you really have to have a strategic vision just for that, right? So there's a couple different ways that they're doing it.
Right. And it's important, especially like in a university setting, to get each of the colleges involved.
Right.
Because you might have the College of Education on one type of environment and then the College of Agriculture on a different one, right?
Absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely. A lot of these universities, some of them operate as kind of small cities where each different college does its own thing. I mean, there's a central IT infrastructure, you know, but then there are some that have a very strong central IT infrastructure where they really mandate what each of these different schools has to do. And so again, it's really getting to understand what the process is inside of these institutions and coming to understand how to solve for that. So.
Okay. And either one of you can take this one from Taylor. Taylor, you are just sending those questions in. Thank you so much. So what kind of cybersecurity concerns come into effect when running a hybrid IT infrastructure?
So that's a great question, Taylor. And specifically with infrastructure as a service, I think one of the things that we talked about at the Nashville Summit was the delineation of responsibilities as it pertains to SaaS versus IaaS.
Okay.
And I think the infrastructure piece, that hybrid piece, is really important to remember for organizations that the data center provider or the cloud provider only takes care of the physical up to the hypervisor level. So as the end user, they still have to be responsible for the data, the OS, and the application itself. So essentially all the activities that go into protecting your virtual machine on-premise applies to cloud. So client-side encryption, server-side encryption, identity and access management, logging tools, all that's still extremely important to try to prevent a cybersecurity breach.
Yeah, that's a great point. And I mean, just another smaller example with Office 365. I can't tell you how many customers I talk to that go from these on-premise Exchange and Office environments. And there's this notion out there that if you just put it all into Office 365, it's automatically going to be secure, it's automatically going to be backed up, you automatically have some sort of an email archiving solution in place. And that might be true, but in most cases it's not. And so we have to really consider all this. And that all speaks to the whole security thing that Sandra just spoke about.
Okay. Thank you. That's really great feedback. And so last question, what is the best way to get started? Is it possible to just, you know, start small with just a little bit, or should you jump in with a big deployment?
Would you like that guy?
Definitely start small and scale once proven. I think it's never good to go all in at once. So making sure that you really understand and have some successful use cases and then building your strategy from there is very crucial.
Yeah, it's funny because we get a ton of customers that come to us and they say, we've got to move all the way to the cloud and we've got to be there in 6 months.
Right.
100% not going to happen. I wouldn't condone it. I would do it under protest. You know, starting small is the best, but have that attached to a strategic plan. Let us help you build that strategic plan. I don't want to see any of these customers go through the year turn because most of my customers I like and I want to continue working with them.
Okay, so last question, and this is an important one. It's SysAdmin Day. You guys heard about SysAdmin Day, right?
Yeah.
So we put together 2 playlists on Spotify and YouTube featuring songs of empowerment for systems administrators and also songs of appreciation from all of the rest of us. And we want to know from both you and Sandra, just to keep it fun a little bit, if your work life were a song, what would your IT anthem be?
Mine would probably be Still Breathing by Green Day. It's representative of going through an evolution and coming out a winner on the other end. And that's kind of what we strive to do here at CDW, and taking our customers through these hybrid transformations or evolutions is really not to make them fall on their face, but to make sure that they're standing up straight and still breathing at the end of it, and they're better organizations for it.
Okay. Sandra, what's your IT anthem?
I heard it on my drive this morning. I'm going to go with Girl on Fire by Alicia Keys.
I love it.
Sometimes I feel like I'm on fire in a good way. Sometimes I'm on fire in a bad way. But
right, putting out fires.
That's right.
But you're like a bird of prey. So those are really great. I think we're going to add those to the playlist. Take note, you guys. All right. So what about you? What's your IT anthem? Let us know in the comments now, and your recommendation could be added to our Spotify and YouTube playlists. And so I appreciate both of you guys for spending some time and answering these questions with us today and answering the audience questions. If we didn't get to your question, we'll be sure to share an answer back to you in the comments. We're going to take Joe and Sandra to the side and ask them to answer some of those questions. So now let's check back in on our trivia question. What was the real number? Was it higher or lower? The correct answer is higher. 63% of organizations cite productivity as a top driver for increasing IT investments. All right, as we wrap up today's episode of TechVision Live, we wanted to leave you with 3 items to consider as you're thinking about developing a hybrid infrastructure. First, compliance. Today's IT leaders must manage sprawling IT assets, safeguard systems against malicious threats, meet stringent compliance regulations, and regularly roll out new technologies. Determine what requirements you need to implement when securing or moving data. Then there's app dependency. As you begin to plan, look at what apps you use and when you use them. And don't forget about economics. Decide which predictable workloads you can keep on-prem, figure out the resources you will consume, and as a result, how much you will pay if workloads are moved to the cloud. Much of what Sandra and Joe have discussed today and more great information about modern IT infrastructure and cloud can be found in CDW's Modern IT Infrastructure Report. And you can download it right now at cdw.com/modernit. You'll also find the link to it in the comments. Thanks to everyone who joined us today for our latest episode of TechVision Live. We hope you learned something new about getting started with upgrading your IT infrastructure, finding success on your cloud journey, as well as things to look for in a third-party partner. We'd love to stay connected with you, so follow CDW on Facebook, Twitter, or LinkedIn for the latest in IT trends, expert insights, and more. Make sure you join us in August for our next episode. And finally, be sure to check back in on Friday, July 27th, SysAdmin Day, for access to our first ever SysAdmin Day playlist. Before we go, we want to leave you with this amazing SysAdmin Day video from Sophos. See you next time, and until then, happy SysAdmin Day, and keep on teching.
You say your laptop screen is blurry?
Yeah, I spilled hot lava on it, and now it's hard to see anything.
Okay. Where's the hot lava now?
Well, hello there. Someone has stolen my phone.
Is it the one you're talking on right now?
Yep. I'm trying to download Wikipedia. It's taking forever.
You're trying to download all of Wikipedia?
No, just one article. Of course I'm trying to download all of it!
84 complaints, 32 questions, 9 rants, and 1 server fire. You know what I call that? Just another day in IT. Just another day with wonderful users. Just another day in IT. Babysitting all the network abusers.
Whenever I reply all.
I like to test the limits of our firewall.
My typewriter doesn't seem to work with Excel.
My Google searches are creepy as...
Hello, you guys know the internet is like slower than a gruesome death scene on Game of Thrones. Like this one time they took...
It's just another day in IT. Nothing will surprise us anymore.
I forgot my password and all of my hints.
Ooh, I just fell in love with a Nigerian prince.
I still don't know how to double click. I gave my phone a bath cause it seemed kinda sick.
It was sick, it was sick, it was sick, it was just another day in IT. Just another day on the brink of disaster. Just another day in IT.
I brought my mom's computer. Can you make it faster?
And the internet. It's slower than Napoleon's retreat from Moscow. I was there.
Don't ever think that you've seen it all, cause there's always something worse at the end of the hall.
Here's a few changes to the website. I want to know where every company laptop is at this very moment. We're hiring 40 new employees and slashing your budget. I need you to swear blood oath that we'll never be hacked. Install Netflix on my Palm Pilot. And seriously, what's the deal with the internet? It's slower than my ex-husband's attorney.
It's just another day in IT. Your ill-informed wishes are our command. We're on the constant lookout for a cyber attack.
My mom thinks I work at Radio Shack.
It's just another day in IT. Just another day to practice restraint. It's just another day in IT. Here comes another
Wi-Fi complaint.
Yeah, sorry. The internet's slower than Steve's metabolism.
Just another day in IT. Just another day in IT.
Sorry, did someone just say tea? I've just spilt tea all over my laptop, and on my phone, and all the phones, and the server.
We will get right on that.